program for female entrepreneurs 2025. I am again so happy to be here with you. I know you heard a lot from me last week. You're going to hear a lot from me again today as we step into our third coaching session together. Today, we're really going to be jumping into your money mindset. I love this topic. I love talking about money. I love supporting women in business with money matters. I've been teaching about money basically my entire coaching career because it's something that we all really struggle with in one way or another. Even if we love money, we still have some struggles with it. And of course, as we talked about last week in the coaching session, we're always looking for ways to bring money into the business, whether that's through funding or through clients. But there's usually other things going on behind the scenes that can keep us stuck as well. So that's what we're going to be digging into today. But before we do that, I just have a message from the BIC Africa team, from Kiara. She has said that she has now finalized the matching for all of the ladies that applied for mentorship. So you shall now all have been introduced to your mentor via email. Feel free to reach out to her directly. You don't need to wait for her to reach out to you. Initiate that conversation. And in your sessions, indeed, you can start talking about the things that you shared in your motivation letter. You can also share the workbooks that you've been putting together during our various sessions and get her feedback on the various elements of your business model. Or if anything else comes up in the course of this program that maybe you didn't know was a challenge before, but you're starting to identify that it's a challenge, then please use your mentor for that as well. So all of those introductions have now been made. Make the most of that relationship while you have it. You will be with her until the end of the program at the end of July, and she is there to support you. So lean on her for that support. She's there willingly. She's not under duress. She wants to help you, and she wants to see you be as successful as you possibly can be in this program and beyond. Okay, so let's go ahead now and jump into today's content, because money is really about so much more than just a number. And I'll be digging into this in a bit more detail. But before we do that, I would love to hear from you in the chat. What feelings come up for you when you hear the word money? What feelings do you have when you hear that word money? Let me know in the chat. Jump in there, type in your responses. Anxiety, yes. Liberty, power, liberty. What else, ladies? What else do you feel? Freedom. Janet, also freedom. What else, ladies? What else do you feel when you hear the word money? And remember, this is a safe space. So I know that Natasha shared anxiety. A lot of you ladies are also sharing very positive feelings that you're experiencing towards money. But if you're feeling negative things, feel free to share that as well, because it's normal. Suzanne shares access and efficiency. Options, freedom, influence. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a lot of positive feelings that come up about money, and there's also sometimes some negative things. And we all have different money mindsets. Now, you might be someone who thinks that money is a pathway to freedom, that it allows you to have influence, it gives you options, that it gives you power, that it gives you freedom. Rebecca shares that it's a tool of war. Yeah, there's also feelings around money that, anyone that's rich is a bad person, that they're, and there are a lot of bad people out there that are very wealthy and that are influencing the world and politics and our living conditions in very negative ways. And that can impact the way that we show up in our businesses. It can impact the way that we price our services. It can impact the way that we talk to potential clients about paying us money. It can impact the way that we chase after invoices or ask for the money that's due to us. And the thing with money is that it's always, always, always about more than just a number. Your money mindset is going to be entwined in your emotions, your behaviors, and your belief. It's going to be impacted by your upbringing, by your culture, and early experiences that shape your attitude towards money. So, for example, maybe you grew up in an environment where money was always a cause of stress. There was never enough to go around. You saw your parents struggling. You knew that you couldn't afford things. You compared yourself to other people, and that was really difficult. And that you carry that into your behavior now as an adult. Maybe culturally you also have beliefs about money, and again, like maybe thinking that people that have money are bad people, that money is a negative source in the world, and that without it we would all be so much better. Um, and this all impacts our day-to-day decision making. Now, you might also think that money is a great thing and that it's a tool for freedom, but maybe you operate from a scarcity mentality. Maybe you believe that it can do great things for you and for your business. You believe that it can be a pathway to freedom, but you operate in a way that prevents you from getting there. Maybe you save every single penny that you have and you don't make investments in your business or in yourself because you're afraid of spending the money or losing that money and losing that security. Now, your emotions are going to play a significant role in all of your financial decisions, whether that be about spending money or saving money, investing money, losing money, making money. And your confidence in finances may then impact the way that you manage your money. So you may not look at your numbers. You may, turn a completely blind eye to what your financial situation looks like. You may not be keeping track of expenses. You may not know if you're in a positive position or in a negative position. And also, you might impact the way that you price your products and services based on how you feel, right? Yeah, Maureen shares money is a state of mindset. Managing money requires a lot of skills, especially emotional intelligence. Yes, managing money is not just a financial skill, it is an emotional skill as well, and giving yourself that confidence to look after it. So, all of these things together make up your mindset towards money. And that's what we're really going to be digging into during the first half of today's coaching session. And in the second half of today's coaching session, I'm going to make it a little bit more practical so that you can understand how to better manage your finances, both personally and professionally, so that you can be living the lifestyle that you want to live, that you can be making the impact that you want to make, and that you can really use money as a source, as a tool to get you towards where you want to go rather than seeing it as a negative thing. So, to prepare for today's session, I asked you all to take a short quiz by a woman called Denise Duffield Thomas. She is a money mindset coach based in Australia. And I'm going to talk through each of these different, what she calls money archetypes, right? And I'll talk through what each of them are, what their strengths and their weaknesses are. I was telling Dawud I have too many screens open all the time. All right, so let me read through what these different things are. So the first one is called the accumulator. This is the inner banker. This is the money conscious saver, often saving like every single penny. They're always looking for bargains when they're out there, and they can often get stuck in what's called analysis paralysis, really looking into every single opportunity so deeply that they get stuck from making a decision. Now, an accumulator's strengths would be that they're conscientious, they're disciplined, and they're very trustworthy when it comes to money. But some of the weaknesses might be that there's a lack of trust, there's a lack of generosity, they have secrecy around finances, they might feel obsessive or compulsive when it comes to money. So, like looking at every single penny, managing every single penny. And they can often feel a lot of doubt or even guilt when they're making investments, when they're investing in something. And by investing, I don't necessarily mean like investing in the market or investing in crypto. Like I'm even talking about making investments into programs or into people that can support their businesses. The next one is the alchemist. Now, the alchemist is an idea generator. They're a dreamer of possibilities, and sometimes they get stuck at the follow-through stage and they struggle to make money out of their ideas because they're just this big dreamer that doesn't execute all the time. Now, their strengths would be that they're idealistic, they're transformational, and they're daring, but some of the weaknesses might be that they rely on others for financial support. They feel very judgmental about money. And they might rebel against creating healthy money habits or even money goals because there's like that dreamer part of them that doesn't want to stick to a structure. The next archetype is the celebrity, the big shot. The celebrity is like a tastemaker. They love the spotlight and the microphone. But sometimes they live way beyond their means and they have luxury goods, they travel, they invest in VIP experiences, things that they may not be able to afford, but that make them look good on the surface, right? The strengths of a celebrity could be that they're very magnetic. They draw people to them. They could be super confident and radiant. They're the type of person that walks into the room and kind of commands the space. But the challenges that they often face are that they can be very compulsive with their spending. They may value status over financial security. So these are the people that might be out there with the designer handbag and the designer clothes and driving a fancy car, but in the background, they're in deep amount of debt and they're living way beyond their means and they're not able to afford the lifestyle that they portray. Um, they spend on appearance often to avoid feeling empty or criticized by other people. The next one is the connector. The connector is the relationship creator, the relationship builder, sometimes a counselor, a cheerleader, or a problem solver, and they often can give away their ideas and their advice for free. They can struggle to charge anyone because everyone they meet becomes their new best friend. They build those really deep connections and they just really want to be helpful, and that can prevent them from charging and earning money for their skill. So their strengths are that they're very trusting, they can come across as very innocent, and they're also very resilient. Now, some of the challenges of being a connector include that they have a lack of financial independence, they don't feel very empowered with money, and they might feel very overwhelmed with financial details. So these are the people that might even be avoiding looking at their finances altogether. The next archetype is the maverick. The maverick is the rule breaker and the champion of the underdog. They hate being told what to do, and they often remake entire industries with their bold and courageous ideas. But they can sometimes also burn their entire business down in the process because they get bored, even if it's working. So the strengths of a maverick include that they tend to be very clever, they can be flamboyant, and they can be very charismatic. But some of their challenges include the fact that they are very secretive or they can potentially be deceptive. And they gamble often with financial security. So they can often get caught in the cycle of like feast or famine. So things can be going really, really great. And then the next minute they're not going great. But they always trust that the money's going to come. So they keep going, they keep pushing forward, even if right now they're in a dire situation. They can often get caught in the feeling of a need to win approval from others. So almost like having that external validation that comes through. The next archetype is the nurturer. The nurturer is the kind-hearted, gentle, and wise soul who's always thinking about serving others, solving other people's problems, maybe even their money problems, so lending money to people, and even over-delivering with clients, even when it causes some grief or martyrdom and resentment on our behalf, right? That we become a bit annoyed that we're over-delivering and yet we feel compelled to over-deliver. Now, the strengths of a nurturer include that they are very giving and they're very devoted and they can be very reliable people. But the challenges they experience is that they feel this need to rescue others, whether that be from a challenge that they're facing or a money crisis that someone is going through and lending money to someone. And in the process of doing that, they can often abandon themselves and not look after their own needs. Everyone else's needs are more important than theirs. The challenge that this then leads to is that they can become resentful even though they still do it. The next archetype is the romantic. The romantic is a go with the flow dreamer and a luxury lover who inspires other people to live in the moment and to give themselves permission to enjoy the finer things of life, even if they can't afford it. Still, they often ignore like pesky details like saving money or preparing for retirement. They're very much in the moment and enjoying what's going on for them right now. Their strengths can be that they're very luxuriant, they're abundant, and they're pleasure seeking. But challenges mean that they might be very extravagant with their spending. They might ignore or avoid anything to do with finances, and they can spend in order to mask some feelings inside, like feeling undeserving or feeling unappreciated or unloved. They make up for that by buying themselves stuff. And then the final archetype that she mentions is the ruler. The ruler is the boss and the empire builder. They have a vision, and often they can be a workaholic who has big plans and they think that they can do it all the time, right? Simultaneously. And what ends up happening is they can get burnt out trying to monetize everything at the same time. Now, strengths of a ruler include that they are courageous, they are visionary, and they're very determined. But some of their challenges include that they don't indulge in enjoying life in the moment. They're so focused on the vision that they're trying to get to that they don't take today. They ignore what's happening today. They don't take pride in today. They don't appreciate the small steps that they're making. They're always chasing a moving target. So as soon as they accomplish something, they're on to the next thing without really taking that moment to appreciate what's happening right now. And even if they're making money, they can often feel like there's never enough, that there's always more out there to be getting. Now, your archetype is going to be like you're going to have one thing that kind of ranked at the top, but you'll actually have a combination of archetypes. So I would love to now hear in the chat which ones resonated most with you. Maybe you took the quiz and you have your results and you can share them. If so, I would love to hear what your top three are. If you didn't take the quiz, just let me know in the chat, like as I was reading through those descriptions, which ones resonate the most with you. For me, my top are accumulator, maverick, and ruler, which I found interesting because when I did this quiz a couple of years ago, maverick was actually my number one. And although accumulator and ruler were also in my top numbers, the order of them has changed, which is very normal when you're going through different stages of life and business. So let me see what you ladies are sharing. Okay, so Fanja says connector is her result during the quiz. Florence shares nurturer. Maureen is also nurturer when it comes to money, but her experience has taught her to be a ruler and a connector. She's still a nurturer, but treads carefully now. Claudiana also a nurturer. Rebecca a nurturer. Anita shares that she has a mindset of connector and nurturer, but wants to be more in the ruler mindset. Janet also a nurturer. Okay. Lots of nurturers. What else, ladies? Keep coming into the chat and letting me know. And if you didn't get a chance to do the quiz before today, I would highly recommend that you do it because it's super insightful to not only let you know what your top one is, but also to let you know what your like number two, number three, and number fours might be, because the way that they play out in each other can be quite interesting. For example, for me, being an accumulator, which means that I'm like the inner banker. I'm always wanting to save money. It's true. I feel safest when I have cash in the bank, right? When I know that if there's going to be an emergency, which often there is because life gets in the way. We've talked about this last week. Life can get in the way of business. Like for me, it's great to know that there's always money in the bank in case things go poorly for a little while, or it takes a little time, or I have a child, or there's a personal situation that makes me step away from business for a bit. So having that cash in the bank is what gives me a strong sense of security and helps me feel safe. But by being an accumulator, there are times that I don't invest as well as I could in my business, where I really question every decision that I'm making and whether it's going to have the return on investment that I want it to have or that I hope that it can have. And that can be really challenging. My maverick side also really plays out because I am used to this feast or famine cycle. And I guess the way that those two work together is although I'm comfortable with feast or famine, when I say comfortable, I don't like it, but I know how like these cycles work and how it's just a process that we have to get through, and that eventually the money's going to come again. And then there might be low points again. But because I also have that accumulator sitting next to the maverick, then when I do have those moments of feast, I make sure that I'm saving money in case the next famine is around the corner, right? And then I also have the ruler as one of my top three, meaning that I'm visionary and I have all these ideas and I want to execute them. But it is true, I have to be very careful about burnout. And this is something I learned the hard way many times because I would often overwork and chase every opportunity. And over the last few years specifically, I've really made changes in my business so that that is not something that controls me as much as it used to. That I can still have big ideas, but I'm much more measured and paced out about when I'm executing them. Nai shares that she's also a nurturer who wants to take care of everyone. Chio says, I swing between an accumulator, nurturer, and ruler, but now I'm intentionally changing to be a maverick and a ruler. Great. Okay. So I'd love to also now hear from you ladies, based on what you believe your money mindset is, how does that impact your attitude towards money? So as I shared, as an accumulator, I really want to make sure that I have those savings in place, that that's how I feel safest. But at the same time, I know that I can make money when I need to. Like if things are really in a pinch, I have the tools that I need to go out and be that maverick and to make something happen and to create something new if I need to get people in the door. So I'd love to hear also from you. How does your mindset impact your attitude towards money? Oh, one other thing to share about the ruler that I shared in the previous slide, but like for me personally, it all like remember that it also says like one of the challenges that we face is like this fear that there's not always enough, right? There's never going to be enough. I definitely suffer from that too. Like I have, and this is something that I actively work on regularly, is like stepping out of a scarcity mindset of feeling like it's always going to be difficult, it's always going to be a challenge, it's always going to be these highs and lows of business, that there's never going to be enough for all the things I want to do. Even though I'm able to live the life I want, I still feel like there could be more and that I'm not going to get there. So I have to manage that mindset actively and and make sure that I challenge it regularly and remind myself of the money that I have around me, the money that I generate in my business, the things that I'm able to pay for, to kind of get out of that scarcity mindset. Because when we're trapped in this kind of scarcity mindset, we can really limit our growth and limit our blessings from coming in our direction. It's almost like we're telling the universe, like, no, don't give me any more because I don't know what to do with it. So we have to check ourselves, right? Um, what do you, okay, so Fandra says, I do not like talking about money. Accounting is my nightmare in my company. Yeah, you're not alone in that, Fandra. So many women that I work with are the same way. They really fear the finances of their business. Rebecca says, sometimes preferring social impact over profit just makes me work for free. Yes. Fandra also says, I just want to have money and no need to manage it and just have enough to do what I want to do. But you even know what enough is. Like if you're really avoiding the money stuff, like do you even know what the right number is? And we're going to calculate that number later on today so that you do know what that is. But often we always say like, I want to have enough, quote unquote, enough. And yet we don't know what enough is. We don't have that goal written down, that very tangible number to say, this is how much I want. Claudiana says, I tend to give so much to others without counting, and sometimes I do things for free. Yeah. Gugu says, I always get uncomfortable to talk about money, even though I know how much I want to charge for a service, but I don't want to appear greedy. How can I overcome this? I would challenge you to think about like why do you believe, what makes you believe that talking about money makes you greedy? Challenge that question itself, like that statement itself. Like, why does talking about money make you feel greedy? Or what beliefs do you have that cause you to think that talking about money makes you a greedy person? Start there. Start with really digging into that belief. Where does that come from? Is it a belief that you yourself have, or is it a belief that has been passed down to you from somewhere else? And really, really, really dig into that. Yeah. Rebecca says, I also have developed a lot of family responsibilities that have made me feel like I cannot reach my money goals, like saving. So I feel stuck and lazy to achieve them. Yeah. Um, this is tough, right? When you have family obligations, what is often known on the continent as black tax, right? Because you're paying for your family, you're paying for someone to go to school. There's someone that's injured and needs to go to the hospital, and you have money, so we're going to call on you to help us and to do that. Sometimes you really have to put boundaries in place. And I say this as someone who doesn't have black tax, so I don't fully understand what it's like, but knowing that a lot of my clients face this exact same problem, boundaries are really important. Like, don't overextend yourself to the point where you are suffering in order to make someone else more comfortable, right? You have to be able to reach your money goals and not tell anyone else what they are. Like, no one else in your family needs to know that you're making more. But it's really great that you mentioned this, Rebecca, because you'll probably find that you're playing small. You're holding yourself back from achieving great things because you don't want to then dish out more money to other people. You don't want more people to come to you and say like, hey, can you help me with this? Because then you'll feel obligated to say yes. So it's really important to set boundaries and to identify like, what do I need for myself before I can start putting out towards other people. Now he says, I don't mind talking about money, but just find out that I'm very bad for money strategies. Yeah. Maureen says it makes me resilient, accommodating, inquisitive, empathetic, and realistic with my ideals, mission, and vision. Rebecca also shares, I've noticed that I've reached a point of resentment towards people who pay me less or breach their contracts with me. Yeah, when we start delivering for less than we really want to be making, we do get resentful, we do get angry, we do get disappointed. And you know, it's us that has to set those standards and say, no, this is the price. You can either pay this price, whatever the price is, you can either pay this price or you can go work with someone else. Like we have to be willing to turn down business for the sake of our standards. Your price is your price for a reason. And we'll talk more about financial management over the next two training sessions as well with Agnes. Today is really just digging into what's going on in your head and your feelings around money. But it's up for us as the service provider or the product provider to say, this is the price of my product or service. And sure, there's always going to be cheaper options out there. There's loads of business coaches out there that can deliver things that like me and that charge a lot less money. Sure, go and work with them and that's fine. Like you have to be willing to say, look, these are my ideal clients. These are the people that I want to work with. These are the prices that I want to charge for what I'm offering and stick with them. And then when you have a breach of contract, especially if you have a written contract that's been signed, you have to be willing to stand up for that contract as well. So for example, sending demand letters from your lawyers. And I know that that feels icky sometimes. It feels awful to have to like demand money from someone. But if you have delivered a service and they haven't paid for it, but you've already delivered and you have an agreement that they're meant to pay you for it, then you are entitled to that money. That money is yours. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. You shouldn't feel guilty about asking for it. You shouldn't feel like, oh, it's okay. They don't have to pay me. They do have to pay you. They had a contract with you. So if someone is in breach of contract, you have to be willing to stand up to that contract and say, this is the contract that we have. And if they're unwilling to resolve it, then, getting your lawyers involved to send demand letters and say, hey, you owe this money based on this contract and give them an opportunity to settle that way. Sure, you can walk away from money that's due to you, but if you continue to do that, your business won't last for very long. Natasha says, being an entrepreneur made me respect money more somewhat. Florence shares, I find it difficult to charge for my services. I end up doing too many free services or accept so little. I'd love to hear more about that, Florence. Like jump in the chat again. Like why do you find it difficult to charge? Like what is that underlying feeling? Is it fear? Is it a feeling that you're not worth that amount? Do you have imposter syndrome? Like, who do I feel like I am to be charging this amount of money? Chio says, I used to be anxious and scared around money, scared of spending on myself, and then also never thinking it's enough. But I've been doing some inner work and evolving into having a deserving mindset about money and making myself the first priority. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Maureen says, very true. Don't please people and displease yourself. Yeah, like please yourself, right? Like the most important person that you have to look after is you because you are the business owner. You are the provider for so many others. And if you can't look after yourself, then you're never going to be able to provide for others, whether that's employment or money. Yeah. So Florence, thank you for sharing. Like it's fear, right? It's fear about charging, right? And some fear can be all sorts of things. It can be like the fear that someone's going to say no, right? This fear of rejection. Rejection's going to happen in business. Like I've lost count of the number of people that have said no to me. Like you just have to pick up and move on and go for the next person. And the thing is, right, especially as a service provider, you could still quote a much lower price. Let's say you want to charge $1,000 just as an arbitrary number. You want to charge $1,000, but you tell yourself these people can't afford to pay me $1,000. So then you offer them the same exact thing for less money. Let's say you go to them and you're like, okay, it's $500. You are still going to have rejection at $500 in the same way that you're going to have rejection at $1,000. Just because you lower your price doesn't mean that someone's going to say yes, because there's often a money situation happening for your clients as well, where they don't feel safe. They don't believe that it's going to give them return on investment. They don't think that they don't think that they deserve to make an investment in this amount of money. So regardless of what you're charging, whether it's $1,000 or $10, you're always going to get people that say no, right? So rejection is something that you're really going to have to get used to. Um, Maureen says, I will learn to let go to businesses, clients that don't favor me, no matter the amount or who's involved. Yes. Yes, fear of rejection. Yeah. And she says, Maureen also says, sticking to my standard has helped me manage fear of rejection. Like I say, rejection is going to happen, and it's a valid fear. I get it. And it sucks. It sucks when people say no, whether it's a client that says no, or a job opportunity that says no, or a potential partner that says no. Like rejection always hurts us, right? It's always something that our ego feels a little bit bruised by. Um, but I would rather have someone saying no to $1,000 than saying no to $10, because on the $10, every time like someone says yes to $10, you're then delivering and you feel really bad about it. Now, you can make services still accessible for lower price points while having a higher ticket offer. Like for example, I sometimes run workshops online that are like 20 bucks, right? For 2 hours of my training, and it's a big group of people. And that's a way to get people to know who I am and to grow my audience. But what I have found is that over my 12, 13 years of doing business, when I do free stuff, those people very, very rarely convert into my higher priced programs. And so it's like even the $20 one, it's like a way to nurture a relationship, but they're not going to go from a $20 program to a $1,000 program like that. It's still going to take a lot of time nurturing them and getting them to trust me and to like me before they're going to say yes to me. So I actually stopped doing free things in my business because I just found like they weren't worth it. They weren't bringing in the customers the way that we're taught to believe that they will. But you can still have free resources available. Like all of those blog posts that I shared with you ladies last week in the WhatsApp group, those are free resources that I have put out there that people can read and get a feel for my voice and a feel for how I can work with people and get some inspiration and insights and education. And they're just there, right? And anytime someone brings me a challenge that's very similar to a challenge that someone has had before, I can just share those articles with them as a way to nurture that relationship. But I don't do free things anymore. I don't do free talks. I don't do free courses. Um, Maybe I'll offer like early bird pricing if someone wants to sign up early, but the more confidence you get as a business owner, the more that you'll be able to say the price is the price. And if the price isn't the price for you, I'm sorry, like you can save up and come and work with me when you're ready. You can go out there and find other resources. Here are free articles that you can read, or Google searches or YouTube videos that people can go to instead. Don't feel like you need to be in the market for everybody. Okay. Yeah, Maureen says people pay for value. Yeah, like if they think that you're a $10 person, they may not be interested in you, right? Some people want that $1,000 person. They just have to save up the money to get to you. All right. So digging into this a little bit more, like how, and we talked about this a little bit already, just in like the pricing, but how does the way that you think about money impact the way that you price your products or services? If you feel like money is an evil thing, then you're probably charging very, very little for what you're offering. Or if you feel like, there's never going to be enough, then you're probably also undercharging. But let me know if there's any other thoughts that you ladies have around the way you price your products and services. I'm in the chat with you. Well, let me ask it this way. How many of you, and you can just put your hands up, like how many of you feel like you're undercharging? Yeah. Claudiana, Nye. Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Fandra says, I'm always asking one of my team, oops, now the chat's going fast. I'm always asking one of my team to do the pricing because when it's her, she undercharges. Okay. Maureen thinks that her pricing is more practical and real. Natasha says, sometimes I undercharge based on what I would spend, not what the service is worth. Interesting. So, one piece of advice that I have for all of you, and thank you, Natasha, for sharing that. Um, Other people's money is none of your business. I'm going to repeat that. Other people's money is none of your business. What I mean by that is that you shouldn't put your price out there based on what you would pay for something because you don't know what somebody else would pay for something, right? You're not always going to be your ideal customer. Now, for example, like one of my like my high ticket program is about $3,000 for 3 months, and a single day of working with me is about $1,500, right? Like half that price. Now, sometimes I ask myself, like, would I make this investment? Would I invest $1,500 in a single day with a business strategist? And the answer is it depends, right? I have to know that I am getting something out of it that is valuable to me, not the money thing. The money thing is just, it's a decision that you make and then you spend it. But do I believe that I'm going to get return on investment on that $1,500? And if the answer is yes, then I'm likely to make that same sort of investment. But if I don't think that it's going to be valuable to me, then I'm not going to spend that money, of course. And so it's the same with our services. If our ideal clients don't think that what we're offering is of value to them, it doesn't matter if it's $10 or $1,000, they're never going to spend the money. Now, if you have something, let's say you have something that's $100 and you're questioning like, oh, maybe it's too expensive. Lots of people go out for dinner once a week and they easily spend $100 on a meal. Or they go to a concert, or they go shopping and buy clothes, or whatever, right? Like this is why I say other people's money is none of your business. What people choose to spend their money on is not for you to decide, and it's not for you to really decide whether like it's cost effective for them. It's for you to price based on the value of what it is that you're offering. Laura says, I can hear you again. Yeah, other people's money is none of your business. I will repeat this and repeat this. Um, so Okay, so Nye says, how do you convince someone with who you work for a very long time that you increase your price? This is great. I think I even have a template somewhere that I can dig out and share with you, like a price notification. So what you want to do, and I'll look for that after the session, but what you want to do is you want to give them notice, right? You want to let them know, like, this is coming. And it doesn't have to be this is coming tomorrow. Maybe you have like a 3 month contract with them, and halfway through the 3 months you let them know, hey, by the way, I wanted to let you know that our prices are going to increase effective from this date. And oftentimes business owners feel like they need to justify an increase in price. But if you go to the grocery store and a loaf of bread used to be $1, and now a loaf of bread is $1.50, that grocery store is not telling you why they've increased their price by 50 cents. They've just increased it. And you then make the decision if whether or not you want to now buy that more expensive bread, right? And it's so crazy that we as small business owners feel like we can't increase our prices when everything around us is constantly going up in price. We live in a world where there's always inflation. Year on year on year, there's inflation. In some of our countries, it's ridiculously high, and in other countries, it's a little bit more manageable. But if your cost of living is going up by, let's say, 5% every year due to inflation, your rent is going up, your utility bills are going up, the cost of food at the grocery store is going up, and you're still charging the same prices, that means that you are worse off today than you were a year ago, even if you're making the same amount of sales, right? You have to increase your prices from time to time. And with a long-standing customer, the key is to like give them notice and to also really highlight the benefits of working with you and the continued benefits of working with you. And if they decide that they don't want to continue working with you, then you take that. You just say, okay, I understand, like you're welcome to go somewhere else. But oftentimes our customers will be reasonable. Now you don't want to jump astronomically from, let's say, $100 to $1,000 overnight, but you can go up by like $50 or $100 on your services. I don't know how much you're charging, but this is just, go into small increments. Another thing that you can do is, for example, I have clients that come back to me, not necessarily straight away. So I might work with someone for 3 months and then they come back perhaps a year later. And every time they come back, the price is more expensive. And they never say, oh, but I only paid $1,500 the last time. They just naturally understand like business evolves, like the cost of living goes up and therefore the prices are likely to go up as well. Um, She wrote, when I first started Lily Essential Skincare, I was severely undercharging, but not anymore. Janet says, I feel she undercharges most of the time. Um, Chio, my new mindset, I have low, mid, and high price products and expect people to go for what their pocket can afford or keep it moving. Great. Yeah, focus on your value, Maureen. Yes, other people's money is not my business. Yes. Um, Anita says, sometimes I set my prices according to my customers' purchasing power, and sometimes people remark that it's unfair to charge and such a person more because they have higher purchasing power than someone else. Interesting. Um, Yes, I mean, you could say that. You could say that it's unfair to charge someone more if they have higher purchasing power. The other way that you could look at it is that you always have that higher price as your standard price, and then you make a decision if you want to charge someone less. So rather than saying my benchmark is $25, and if I believe you can afford it, then I'll charge you 100. You instead say my starting price is $100, and if in the course of doing like having conversations with someone or trying to convert someone to a customer, you believe that they need a less expensive price, then you make the decision to discount it. So I would maybe flip it that way. Rather than saying that you charge someone more, I would say that you offer it for less. The other thing that you can do is, for example, you can offer, if you're doing services, um, you can choose how many clients you want to offer a discount to. Maybe even you sometimes, like, for example, sometimes I do like pro bono mentoring, which isn't my core offer, but I might make a decision that if there's a younger person who really could benefit from my services, but isn't my ideal client for my programs, I might choose to mentor them for a few months with a very specific outcome for them in mind and do that on a pro bono basis. But I choose that. I choose my capacity for free work. Or discounted work, and it's not the standard. The standard is the normal price rather than the discounted price. All right, my next question for you ladies: how does your money mindset impact the amount of money that you pay yourself? How does it impact the amount of money that you pay yourself? Maybe you don't pay yourself. I'm curious about that. Andrew says she's paying herself very low. Yeah. Yeah. Claudiana says my business doesn't pay me yet. It's very common. And it's very common when you're getting going that your business isn't paying you. It could even be common at different stages of your business. Like I was talking to a client a couple of weeks ago where she told me that they've had to stop paying the salaries to the directors, to the two partners of the business because cash flow is very low and their priority is, of course, to pay their staff and to pay rent and other things that need to keep the business going. So there are sometimes, unfortunately, times that us as the business owners have to stop paying ourselves a salary. And that's where it's important to have like that backup savings, both in the business and personally, to kind of weather those storms. Now, you can't exist like that forever though. So even if all you can do is pay yourself a small amount of money to start with, at least you're then getting into the habit of paying yourself something, and treating that, even if it's just making sure that any money that you're putting into the business to cover expenses, that you're at least extracting that back, right? So maybe you've had to pump money in to cover startup costs, right? To pay for the bills for the first couple of months until you get customers in the door. Keep track of that number so that when your business starts to make money, you're paying yourself back that investment. You're at least extracting some money from the business and not just constantly pumping money into it. Um, yeah, a lot of you are sharing that you're not paying yourself yet. Natasha says, but she uses her service without paying, yeah, and puts fuel in her car. Okay. Yeah, so even if you're not able to pay yourself a salary, consider are there expenses that your business can cover for you? So for example, um, my business, because I work from a home office, my business pays a portion of my rent every month. It doesn't pay 100% of my rent because I live in my place also, but I have my business paying about 40-ish% of my rent because apart from sleeping, like I'm really using this place for work. When I had a vehicle, my business also paid for fuel. It paid for maintenance for my vehicle because I really was only using it to go to business meetings. Um, I pay a portion of my electricity and my internet through my business. So even if you're not able to pay yourself a salary, see which expenses your business can start to cover on your behalf. My business pays my health insurance because it's a benefit to me as an employee. My business pays my nanny because if I didn't have a nanny, I wouldn't be able to work. And things like that. So think about what expenses your business might be able to cover, even if you yourself feel like you can't take a proper salary. And of course, there's challenges with salary, right? Because when we pay ourselves a salary, we then have to pay we have to pay the government tax, right? Like all of our countries have pay as you earn tax, and then you lose out on like another 30% of the money that's being paid to you. So there's smart ways to take money out of your business, which doesn't necessarily need to be salary, but make sure your business is giving you something. Gugu, my business doesn't pay me just to ensure I can cover my bills. Yeah. Nice. Says I have several small businesses that allow me to pay for it myself, but I find that they are not sustainable in the long term because some don't earn anything and that creates deficit. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Chio says, when I started a business, I used to feel extremely guilty paying myself. Now I pay myself, though not constantly, but I make sure to check the pay level for my position and note that the business is owing me. Yes, yes. Note that the business is owing you. So even for me, there's been times where I haven't been able to pay myself. In fact, this year I'm not paying myself. I haven't paid myself a salary for the majority of this year because I've just been paying back money that I've put into the business. But I also do the same. I make a note of saying, okay, if my salary, if I should be earning, let's say it's like, I don't know, let's say it's $2,000 a month. If I should be earning $2,000 a month and I haven't paid myself $2,000 a month, then I also make a note of that and say, okay, I haven't paid myself for six months of this year. Therefore, the business owes me $12,000 at some point. And make a note of that because why are we struggling? Why are we making ourselves suffer? Why are we making it so that we're paying everybody but ourselves, right? And you'll always find a way to pay your staff. You'll always find a way to make that happen, but we don't put the same priority on ourselves and making sure that we also are surviving, right? And covering our life. And that eventually will cause you to feel resentment towards your business as well. If you're constantly putting money into it and not getting any money out of it, you have to ask like, what are you doing it for? Okay. So, with all of this awareness that you now have about some of your beliefs about money and some of the things that you're doing, I would love to hear now, like, with this awareness, what changes can you make? What changes do you want to make? Whether that be to your pricing or to your salary or to the expenses that you're taking, what can you do differently in your business? Andrew says, review my pricing and give me more salary. Yeah. Know my worth and be assertive. Now it says, develop new skills to be more competitive. Natasha says, definitely going to keep reviewing my prices and consider myself employee number one. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. Florence says, I'll try to be a bit more firm with my pricing and not quickly shift grounds. Again, like I always do. Yeah, it can be like sometimes we even offer discounts before someone asks for them. Now, if you live in a market, like many of us probably do, like I know for sure this is true in Kenya. I don't know about Nigeria, but like if you live in a market where people are always going to ask you for a discount, Natasha, you can probably like resonate with me on this. If you live in a market where someone is always like likely going to ask you for a discount, start with a price that's higher than what you actually want to be charging. So, for example, if I know that my program is $3,000 and I am talking to someone who's for sure going to ask me for a discount, I might go up to 3,200. That way, when they ask for that discount, I bring it down to 3,000, which is the amount that is my price, but they feel like they're getting a discount because I overquoted to start with. Now, that's something that you can do. You can start with a higher price and then let them negotiate you down so that they feel like they've won. The other thing I do, however, is that if someone asks me for a discount, I say no. And this is more likely my stance. Like I don't often like overquote. I do when it comes to contracts, like if it's a very bespoke package of quoting for time versus like one of my standard programs, I might overquote knowing it's going to come down a little bit. But usually I will just say no. And the reason that I say no is especially like last week, for example, I started a new group program and one of the women in the final days of registration for the program, she asked me if she could pay less for it. And she's like, "Oh, if you can give me at this price, then I'm definitely in." And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't. There's other women that have already signed up at the price, and to give it to you for less would be unfair. And this is the price." And that was fine. She was like, "Oh, okay." And then she just, miraculously, the extra $100 came out of nowhere, and she was able to pay the full price. So also, don't feel like you have to say yes to discounts. You can very much say no. I remember also working with a woman a couple of years ago, and her husband came into the initial meeting to kind of try to negotiate on her behalf. And he was like, "Oh, well, in our culture, we always negotiate." And I was like, "Yeah, and in my culture, we don't." And that was like the end of the conversation, and they just paid the price. So build up that confidence. You're allowed to say no. Um, yeah. And then Chio says, I increased my pricing recently and also increase the value that the business offers to customers, including a free skin consultation when a certain amount is spent, and then free delivery for very bulk orders. Yeah, you can do these small things that aren't really costing you very much, but that make it seem like to the client that you're adding a lot more value. That's awesome. Okay, good. Keep working with this. If you haven't done that quiz, I highly recommend that you do take some time to do it. When you do that quiz, that woman, Denise, will also send you a number of emails afterwards. She has a number of videos that kind of teach you a little bit more about your top archetype and how it might show up in your business. Off the back of that, she's trying to sell a program. Of course, you do not have to invest in that program, but take advantage of the free training that she gives off the back of it because you might find some more insights. It's training that I myself have done. The free one, I haven't invested in her big program, but I do find it super insightful, and that's why I introduce it also as part of this particular module of money mindset. But now I would like us to get more. Oh, so sorry. Anita also shares work on my money mindset, review my prices based on the value I want to bring, and review my spending and investment priorities. Yeah. Virginia says regularly assess prices to reflect values and market position. Good. All right. Now I would like us to get into a much more practical element of this money mindset work, which is to help you to understand your numbers a bit more. So a lot of you share that you avoid your numbers, you don't like talking about them, they make you feel uncomfortable. Today, I'm going to support you through that part so that hopefully you feel a little bit more confident by the end of today's session and at least knowing what the numbers mean to you before you go into these more deeper financial sessions with Agnes over the coming weeks, okay? So there are several ways that you can start to improve your money matters and also your mindset around money. The first one is to create a budget, to set a budget about how much money it is that you want for your own life, which we're going to do together in a minute, but setting a budget so that you know exactly how much you need every single month to survive. Not only survive, but also thrive, to really live the life that you want to live and to be able to cover things in your business as well. The next thing that you want to do is to keep track of your money because When you start to pay attention to your money, that's when real changes can take place. I know that looking at money, especially if you're in debt or if your numbers are low, can really feel intimidating and scary. But when you have that knowledge about what your numbers are, you can then start to make much more informed decisions about how to move forward. There was a time a couple of years ago in 2023 when I was like a year postpartum with my son, when I was about like $10,000 in debt, $12,000 in debt, maybe even a little bit more, because I really had to rely on credit to get me through maternity leave. You know, I was looking after my child as a single parent and I didn't have anyone supporting me financially. And I wasn't able to work with clients because I was fresh out of delivering a baby and having to kind of look after a human and myself, two humans, a small one and me as a big one. And I couldn't, you know, hit the capacity I needed to in my business to really pay for everything. So I came into debt and quite a bit of debt, which I felt really bad about because it felt insurmountable at the time. But I made it a point to really look at those numbers. And the more that I looked at them, the more that I was able to find ways to work with them and even to start chipping away at that debt. So within a few months, not a few months, it was probably about 6 months, I was able to pay it all off and to start from zero again. Which was very encouraging and also motivating to keep going. So when you look at your numbers and you keep track of your money, it can become much easier for you to make good decisions, sound decisions, but also to fix the financial situation that you find yourself in. The next thing that we're going to do is calculate your net worth, because net worth is a number that we often overlook, and net worth is actually more important than just your income alone or how much money you have. And then the final thing that we're going to do together during this session is to build some financial goals for yourself. So the first thing I want to ask you is, maybe you don't know the answer to this question. How much does your desired lifestyle cost every month? Do you know? How much does it cost every month? You don't have to give me the exact number, but I would like to know, like, yes or no. Do you know how much your desired lifestyle costs every month? Let me know in the chat. Okay, nice says yes. Gugu says she has an idea. Okay, about $800. Anita says yes. 20K from Rebecca. Okay. So some of you have an idea, some of you feel like you know what the answer is. So for those who already know, this exercise might be a little bit redundant for you, but I encourage you to do it anyway, just so that you're very clear about what this number is. Natasha says yes. Emeradillo says $1,000. No worries, Maureen, welcome back. I'm just asking if you know what your desired lifestyle costs. But if you don't know the answer, we're going to do a quick calculation right now to figure it out. Okay, 1,500, good. So to figure out what your desired lifestyle costs, you need to calculate all of these different things. So this is just going to be a rough number for you to come up with right now, but I will share a spreadsheet with you, like a template after the session that gives you a much more in-depth spreadsheet that you can work through to help you calculate what your budget looks like, both for your personal life and for your business. But these are the things that you'll want to start considering, right? And as we go through these, I encourage you just to make a quick note on a piece of paper to the side so you can tally this up at the end, okay? So the first thing you want to consider is how much is your mortgage or your rent every month. That's going to always be typically the biggest chunk of our income goes towards that, sadly, right? Yeah, I'll definitely send the template to you ladies. Okay, so write down whatever your mortgage or rent is, and you don't have to do this in the chat, just jot this down on a piece of paper. So what is your mortgage or rent? The next thing is to consider all of your utility bills. So how much are you spending every month on water, on electricity, on internet, on like TV, whether that's satellite or fiber or whatever other options are out there. Gas. So maybe you don't buy a gas canister every month. Maybe you buy one like every 3 months. But like if you were to take that 3 month number and divide it by 3, what's that monthly number look like? So jot down what are all of your utilities coming up to. Then you want to consider how much money you're spending, for example, on groceries every month. This is also usually a very big expense in comparison to other areas. But count up all the money that you're spending on groceries, whether that's at the grocery store or at the market or at the small little shop on the corner that you're buying little things day to day. How much are you spending every month on groceries for you and for anyone else that you're looking after in your families? You then want to consider how much you're spending on transportation. So if you're taking public transportation, this will be buses or subways. I don't think any of us have subways in our countries, but buses or shared services like matatus here in Kenya, like little mini buses, boda bodas if you're taking motorbikes to different places. If you have your own private vehicle, this will be your fuel. It will also be maintenance charges for your car. It will be insurance that you're paying for your vehicle. So how much are you spending on your transportation? It could also be that you're flying places, like maybe you have to go to visit people sometimes on a regular basis. Maybe it's flights, maybe it's trains, but what are you spending monthly on transportation? The next thing that you want to consider is school or university fees, and this can be any sort of education, even if it's like continuing education for yourself or for your children or for other people in your family. Again, I know we're not paying these fees on a monthly basis. We tend to pay them at the start of every term or sometimes at the start of the year. So take that number and divide it by 9 or 10 so that you can get a monthly number for what's going towards education. Then you want to calculate the money that you're spending on appearance. So these are things like buying new clothes, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, makeup, anything that you're using to like, and this is not just again for you, this is also maybe for your kids, like if you're buying them clothes and they grow so fast. We're always buying our kids clothes. So anything that's appearance related, whether that be physical stuff like clothing or service-based things like facials or haircuts or braids or things like that. You want to tally that up. And again, you might not be doing this every month. You might not be spending on stuff every month, but maybe you're doing this like once a quarter or once every 2 months. So just take how often you're spending and divide it by the number of months that it covers to get a monthly figure. Then you also want to consider any leisure activities that you're partaking in. So this could be like going out to eat with your friends. It could be going to the cinema. It could be going to watch music play somewhere. It can be even like going on hikes and having to pay entrance fees and consider how you're spending your spare time. Maybe you love reading books and you're buying books all the time. That would be a leisure activity. How much are you spending on that? How much do you want to be spending on that every single month? Because often we like downgrade our lives for a while when we're starting business and we're not allowing ourselves to earn or to spend as much as we want to because we don't have the money. But if you could, what would you want to be spending? And then there's a whole host of other things that you want to consider. So maybe you're tithing with your church and you're giving donations every month. Maybe you're paying black tax and you have to consider that amount. Perhaps you are paying for prescriptions and you have to pay for medication every month for yourself or for people in your family. Maybe you're buying prescription eyeglasses. What else? Like for all of us, there's going to be things that we're spending money on. Another area to consider is like subscriptions that you have. So, for example, are you paying for things like Netflix or Apple Music or Spotify or like different services like that? Audible. I think about all these different like apps that we have on our phone that we're paying for. All right. So this is how you start to understand how much you need to be earning on a monthly basis in order to cover your lifestyle. And like I said, I will share a template with you that helps you do this calculation in a lot more detail. Um, but ultimately, this number is the number that your business has to pay you at some point for you to be able to live, right? And I know a lot of you are not right now paying yourself this amount of money because your business doesn't have it, but that means that you're still paying this money from somewhere, whether that be from savings, or maybe you have a side hustle, or maybe someone in your family is supporting you and giving you money to help cover these expenses. But my big question to you is, do you earn enough right now to cover your desired lifestyle? I think a lot of you would say no, right? Let me know in the chat. Do you earn enough right now to cover your desired lifestyle, whatever that number looks like? No. Yeah. Yeah. No. Not even close. No, no, no. Yeah. No. Okay. This question isn't to make you feel bad. It's just to open your eyes to the fact that right now there's a gap between where you are and where you need to be, right? And the longer that this gap exists, the harder it's going to become for you because money is going to run out somewhere, right? Like the savings account might run out, or the generosity from family members or friends might run out. The extra contract that comes in and brings in a bit of cash, it might run out. And so it's really important to get your business to a state where it's able to start generating money and making sales so that it can pay you the money that you need to live. Because if you cannot make this money from your business, then at some point you're going to have to look for alternative ways to get money. And sometimes that means going into employment, which then means that you lose focus on business, you lose time that you can spend on business. So this is a really just important eye opener for you as you go into the future sessions with Agnes to start to understand like, okay, my business needs to be able to pay me this much money, whether that be salary or expenses or however you count it. It needs to bring in this much money for me as a business owner, as an employee of my business. And that's a starting point. And on top of that, it also needs to be able to pay for all these other things in my business, whether that be premises or machinery or products or staff. And it has to include you in that equation because if it doesn't include you, you will not be able to do it forever. There will come a point where you have to make a really hard decision and say, okay, I can't keep going and I need to be able to bring in money from somewhere. Okay. So my question to you is, if not, and all of you have kind of said, no, it's not, what changes can you make? What are some changes that you can start to make right now so that your business can start to bring in the money that it needs to pay you the money that you need to cover your lifestyle? Yeah, review pricing, increase prices. Yeah. I think it's a factor of pricing and also increasing sales, right? Like you can increase your prices, but also understanding if my product costs this much or my service costs this much, how many of these things at this price do I need to sell in order to make the money that I need to make, right? So for example, if you need to be generating $1,000 a month to cover your life, just your life, forget about business expenses on top of it, but just your life. If you need to generate $1,000 a month just to cover your life, and your product is currently selling at $100, then you need to sell at least 10 of them every single month in order to make your $1,000. Now, remember, this is notwithstanding any other expenses that you have. So in fact, the number is going to be more, but just to cover your life, you need to be able to sell 10 of those things, right? Now, if you increase your price to $200 from $100, then you only need to sell 5 of those things. And maybe those numbers aren't the right ones for your business, but just being very clear about if this is my price, whatever your price is, and you need to make $1,000, how many of those things do you need to sell in order to make that money, right? Um, yeah, review my marketing strategy to bring in more business, review business model, swiftly scale my business operation through partnerships, training, grants, etc. Improve on my marketing, increase my market visibility and growth in sales per month, review pricing and scale my business, adjust my lifestyle. Anita shares adjust your lifestyle. This is definitely an option in the short term. But if you adjust your lifestyle downwards for too long, I promise that you will start to feel resentment towards your business because you don't want to be living in, and not to say that you can't, right? But you don't want to be downgrading your life to such an extent that you then don't enjoy your life anymore, or you don't enjoy your living conditions, or you feel like you're sacrificing too much because it will make you resentful of the business. So here's a suggestion for adjusting lifestyle. Let's say that you are someone who is used to going out and eating a few times a week, And every time you go out and eat, and again, my numbers are just arbitrary. Every time you go out and eat, you spend $50, right? So you are used to going to a $50 per meal or per experience dinner spot, right? You can do one of two things. You can say, I still want to go out to eat 3 times a week, but instead of spending $50 every time I go out, I'm now only going to spend $10. That is going to significantly change the experience that you have when you go out to eat because you are used to a $50 meal and now you're going to be paying for a $10 meal. The quality is going to be different, the ambiance is going to be different, the experience is going to be different. So instead of saying, I'm no longer going to have a $50 meal 3 times a week, I'm going to have a $10 meal 3 times a week, I would encourage you instead to say, I'm going to have a $50 meal once a week so that you still are having the quality, the ambiance, and the experience that you're used to. You're just having it less often. Because otherwise, if you're going out for that $10 meal, every time you go out for that $10 meal, you're going to feel, oh man, I wish I was having a $50 meal instead. And you're going to hate that experience and be resentful of that experience. So instead of changing the type of place that you're going to or the money that you're spending, I just encourage you to decrease the frequency in which you're doing those things, right? Same with like clothing, right? If you're used to spending money on higher quality clothing, I would suggest still spending money on higher quality clothing rather than downgrading the quality of your clothing, just buying less of it, right? Or shopping less frequently rather than completely changing up the quality of what you're used to. All right. So that's just a small suggestion about lifestyle. But yeah, lifestyle is definitely an area where you can make adjustments, where you can say, is this really necessary right now? Looking at where you're spending money, especially on things like subscriptions where money is just going out automatically and you're not even paying attention to it. Start paying attention to where your money is going and track it. Keep an eye on it and say, is this really where I want to be putting my cash at this moment, or are there other things that I should be looking at instead? All right. And alongside this is really around keeping track of your money. And again, the templates that I share with you will include a spreadsheet that lets you do that and gives you like the format for it. But the only way to know for sure if you're sticking to your budget is by keeping track of the money that's coming in and also the money that's going out. So I really recommend performing weekly record keeping, either using an online app or Excel, Google Sheets, or even on a piece of paper. And then as much as possible, avoiding cash transactions, because when you make a lot of cash transactions, money goes quick and you don't necessarily know where it goes. You don't always bring a receipt on board. So for example, here in Kenya, we have mobile money. I think in a lot of your markets you do too, where you have a mobile wallet. Like even if you're just using, ours is called M-Pesa, but if you're just using M-Pesa, that's better than using cash because at least with M-Pesa, you can get a statement at the end of the month, or you can use your SMS messages to see how much money you're spending and where it's going. So try to avoid using cash where you can and using another form of payment that at least has some sort of trail behind it, whether that's a statement or an SMS statement that comes. The other thing is to really try to keep your personal and your business money separate. So have separate accounts for your business. Even if you're not yet registered as a business, I would recommend opening a separate personal account in your own name and doing all of your business transactions through that account. And that if you're paying for something personally, that you move that money into your business account before you then send it out again. So for example, every time that I'm loaning my business money, like if I have to cover a shortfall 1 month or another, I will send that money from my personal account into my business account and then still make the payment from my business account so that the record is there that the money went, it was a business expense. There's also then a record of the money that I sent into the business so that I know what the business owes me later on, you know, and that I can recoup that at some point. So keep your money separate as much as you can. It makes accounting a lot easier, and especially as your business grows, it keeps things very clean. If you are a registered business, it's even more essential because if you ever get audited, the tax authorities will be all over your case if you're mingling your money together. Similarly, you don't want to pay for personal stuff from your business, okay? And then finally, I recommend using software to manage your invoices and your receipts so that it's there, you have a record of it, you're not chasing paper. For those of you who feel like a little bit uncomfortable about like sending invoices and asking for money, software is also a really great way to combat that fear Because it then just automatically sends it from the software and you don't have to even put your personal name on it or your personal email address. You can create another email address for your business. For example, in my business, I have Danielle at stepandstone.com. I also have hello, which is our general info one, hello at stepandstone.com. And I have one that's called finance at stepandstone.com, and then one for each team member. But my invoices all go out from the finance email address. And sometimes in the past, like when I've wanted to remove myself from a sticky payment situation, like maybe a client isn't paying on time or I'm like debating with them to send me more money, I'll even sign the email with someone else's name. Like I'll put my accountant's name at the bottom and it'll just say, thanks very much, best wishes, David. And then they don't know that it's not David that sent it. Like it could be David, it could be Danielle, but it then removes me from that difficult conversation about money. So using software really helps with this because it's not then your personal email that's sending them a reminder to pay you some money. It's a software that's doing it instead. Okay. So what I would love to hear from you now is with this tracking of money, how often will you keep track of your money? Do you want to start doing this on a daily basis? Do you want to start doing this weekly? Does monthly feel manageable for you? Let me know in the chat. What do you want to commit to? Weekly. Yeah, weekly's good. Daily. Yeah, daily is also very helpful because it reminds you of what you're actually spending on daily. Yeah. And Natasha's saying, like, I would love to get into the habit of daily. And it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Like, you could literally just use your phone and put a note on your phone where you're just putting, like, plus money, minus money, and like a small little description next to it. I actually do this for money coming in, and as a recommendation from that woman, Denise Duffield Thomas, of like really appreciating every money that's coming in. I keep track of all the money that's coming into me every single day, whether that be from clients, or maybe a friend has bought me lunch, or maybe someone has sent me a gift, or maybe I even found $5 on the floor or in an old pocket of a jacket I haven't worn in a while, and just really cultivating that gratitude for the money that is there. Yeah. Monthly, okay, monthly expenses, weekly, weekly. Yeah, weekly is good also. I like to call it my weekly money date. I do it every Monday. Monday is the day that I keep track of my money, and also when I keep track of invoices. So if people owe me money, that's when I do follow-ups. That's when I send out invoices and I go into my accounting software. So weekly at a bare minimum, I would say, because at the end of the month, it can be easy to forget what you spent money on. Okay. Um, all right, the next thing that I would love for us to do is to calculate your net worth. Now, your net worth is usually a stronger number than just the money that you have sitting in the bank. What it is a combination of all of your financial assets, so all of the things that you have, versus all of your financial liabilities, which is all of the things that you owe. Okay, so it's what you own minus what you owe. Now, a positive net worth indicates that you are on track to building wealth for yourself, whereas a negative net worth will suggest that there are parts of your financial life that you need to improve. So, the higher your net worth, the more potential stability that you have during times of, for example, economic upheaval or even personal challenges that you might be experiencing. Again, I will give you this in a template, but I'd like you to do just a rough calculation now. So first, I want you to calculate what you own. Okay, so consider all of the following things. Like you want to consider your current accounts, so your current bank accounts. What is the balance in your bank accounts? Whether that be your checking account, your savings account. You then want to consider any investments that you have. So maybe you have investments in money market funds. Maybe you have investments in stock portfolios. Maybe you have investments in cryptocurrency. Maybe you have investments in government bonds. So any sort of investments that you have, and this number goes up or down every month depending on the market conditions potentially, but just whatever that number looks like now, you want to put that one down. You then want to consider your real estate. So maybe you own land somewhere. Maybe you own a house or an apartment that you own outright, that you don't have a mortgage on, that you just own that asset. You can also consider any retirement accounts that you might have. And I know retirement accounts aren't super popular here on the continent as much as they are in, for example, Europe, but some of us still have them. So maybe you have a pension or some other sort of retirement account out there. And then you want to also consider any other assets that you have. So maybe you have insurance policies that pay out in the case of illness, or life insurance policies that pay out in the case of death. And you want to consider those as well. So what are the things that you own? Come up with a rough number of what that looks like. You don't need to share it in the chat, but just for your own personal use, count up all of those things and see what that number looks like. 2,000, okay, good. I'll give you ladies a minute just to do that calculation. And then we're going to move on to calculating what you owe. So now you want to consider the following things. Consider any personal loans that you have. So maybe you have loans that have come from the bank. Maybe you have loans that have come from mobile wallets, like Fuliza and other things. I know you don't all have Fuliza, but the Kenyans that are in the group know what Fuliza is. So maybe there's other places that you've been taking money and borrowing from, even overdraft limits that you might have been extended, any personal loans that you have. You also want to consider maybe you have student loans for your education, that you're still paying down on a monthly basis. Perhaps there's other loans that you have from friends and family. Someone has lent you some money and you owe it back to them at some point. So count up any of that you might have. And then you also want to consider credit card debt if you have that. What is the balance that's potentially sitting on your credit cards? And then finally, any other money that is owed somehow. So maybe you have a credit with a store for something that you intend to buy and you've put it on a payment plan. Maybe you have invested in some sort of services and there's money that's going to be owed at some point in the future that is an installment. So you paid a portion of it, but you still owe more later on. So any money that you owe, you want to calculate here. All right, so I'll give you ladies again a few minutes to calculate whatever this number looks like for yourself. None. Okay, great. And this calculation, ladies, is not to make you feel bad. All right, this is again just to give you awareness of where you are right now. And then with awareness, you can start to make different decisions, which we will do in a few more minutes, but like start to make different decisions about how you want to change things. Okay. Polina says 2,800. Okay. So now to come up with your total net worth, you want to take the amount of money that you own or the amount of assets that you own and subtract the amount of money that you owe, and that's going to give you your total number. So Maureen shares that her things that she owns, her assets are $2,000, and that her debts, her liabilities are zero. So her total net worth is going to be $2,000. So that's how you calculate yours. So I want you to do the same and calculate what your net worth is. You do not have to share the number in the chat unless you want to, but do that calculation for yourself. So take what you own minus what you owe and come up with that number. For some of you, it might be negative, and that's okay. Again, this is just an awareness exercise for you to have a starting point for you to think about, right? So you don't have to share the number with me, but I would like to know in the chat, how do you feel about the number that you calculated? What are your feelings about it? Worried. It can be way better. Frustrated. Thanks, ladies. Thanks for sharing, for being vulnerable and open. Overwhelmed. Sorry. Scared and motivated. She has mixed feelings, says Maureen. Yeah. So let me also ask you, what changes do you want to make to your net worth? What are your main changes? Yeah, Anita also says scared and motivated. Janet says frustrated. I get it. I've been here. Even sometimes I still look at my net worth and I'm like, it could be so much higher. How do I get it to be higher? Fandra says this, her changes, she wants to spend less and earn more. Yeah. I started tracking my net worth about 5 years ago, maybe 4.5 years ago. And it was really eye-opening for me. And it's something that I now do every single month. So I do like, again, the templates that I share that I will share with you later today are the exact templates that I use in my own life and in my own business to stay on top of my finances. And when I started tracking my net worth, like I said, about 5 years ago, it was eye-opening. Like I was, I wasn't in debt at the time. I had just come out of debt, and I've been in debt a number of times in my life for different reasons. But then I saw it tank when, as I shared with you earlier, I had to take debt on when I had my son and wasn't able to work in the same capacity. And then that number was scary, having like over $10,000 in debt that I had to pay off somehow. But then every single month tracking it allowed me to then say, okay, it's getting better. Slowly, slowly, it's ticking away. It's getting better. And then even some of the investments that I have, for example, I have some investments in crypto. I have a retirement plan from when I used to be in employment and my employer was paying it for me. And because of just market conditions, I see those going up. It helps me to feel a little bit better, right? Is to know that money is coming. And then, of course, when I see improvements in sales in my business, because I also include my business accounts in that calculation because the business is me, it's my business. Like, yes, I pay other people, but I am the shareholder of that business. So that's an asset for me. So when I start making more sales in the business and my business accounts go up, that also increases my net worth. So it does motivate me to make sure that I'm setting targets for my business and then really going after those clients to bring in the money, Um, yeah, Janet says to reduce her loans. Maureen says I need to scale up my business operations to increase revenue, reduce my expenses, and keep exploring different opportunities. Exactly. Okay. All right. I don't want you to feel scared. I mean, it's okay to feel scared because it's a natural fear, but I don't want you to feel too discouraged by the number that you calculated. I want today to be your starting point. The day that you say, okay, I am determined that things are now going to be different. I am going to take control of the situation that I am in and I am going to make it better for myself. And what Denise Duffield Thomas calls this is taking inspired action. By taking action towards the things that you say that you want for yourself. And part of that is now going to be in this last portion of today's session, which is around building financial goals. Now, financial goals are targets that you can aim for when managing your money, and they can involve spending, saving, earning, or even investing. Financial goals can include things like paying off debt. So Jana had shared reducing my loan, so paying off debt, creating an emergency fund, purchasing assets, funding your dream lifestyle. Maybe it's even like like having money to take a vacation, right? Preparing for retirement, saving for education expenses, or even starting a business. And I know you're all in business already, but maybe there's more money that you want to put towards your business. So I want us to now work on building some financial goals for yourself. And you'll do this in 3 different stages. So, excuse me, the first goal that you want to do is a short-term goal. So for short-term, I want you just to focus on this year. By the end of 2025, or at some point during this year, what is your financial goal? And I'm going to show you an example in a second. But just by the end of this year, what is it that you want to achieve? So for me, when I was in debt a few years ago, my financial goal was just to pay off that debt by the end of the year. And I wrote down the amount that was required. I set a target for when I wanted that to be done. I then created a plan of action and then a first step for that. So I'll share with you an example in a minute. The next thing that you want to consider is a medium-term goal. So now looking out 5 years from now. So by 2030, what is a financial goal that you have for yourself? Yeah, you're welcome, Anita. What is a goal that you have for yourself in 5 years' time? Maybe it's to be able to buy a piece of land. For me, in 5 years, actually even before 5 years, it's to be able to like pay for my son's education because education is so expensive. But being able to pay for that, maybe it's like I said, buying a piece of land. Maybe it's about making investments. Longer term, 10 years from now, again, for me, it's definitely about thinking about my son's education, but it's also going to be around planning for retirement because in 10 years, I'll be 54, almost 55. And although I won't be retiring at 55, hopefully I'll be retiring around the time that I'm 60 and making sure that I'm set up for that. So that's definitely a longer term financial goal that I want to be able to reach in 10 years time. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not taking action in 10 years time. I'm still maybe taking action on some things this year, but that's a longer term goal that I have. So let me show you an example of how to fill this in, and then I want to give you ladies some time to do it before we wrap up for today's session. So, for example, maybe short term this year, you have a financial goal to create an emergency fund. And the amount that is required for that is 200,000 Kenyan shillings, which is about, let's just do easy math. It isn't the right number, but it's about $2,000. I want to have this emergency fund in place by the 1st of November, 2025. Now, because I want that emergency fund in place by November, that's giving me 4 months to achieve it. So that's July, August, September, and October. Okay. So if I want $200,000 by the 1st of November, my plan of action is that I need to save 50,000 shillings per month. I said dollars a minute ago, I meant shillings. If I want 200,000 shillings by the 1st of November, then I need to save 50,000 shillings a month, approximately $500 a month in order to get to that number, okay? Now, my first step to help me to start saving 50,000 shillings per month is that I need to onboard 2 more clients because 2 more clients is going to give me the money that I need to save 50,000 shillings per month. It will actually give me more than that, but it will give me the amount of money that I need to save 50,000 shillings per month. Okay. Now, let's say I have a medium-term goal of funding my son's education, and I haven't written this out, but actually I can. Let me do it. Fund child's primary education. Okay. And the amount that's required, let me just do this in dollars so that it's easier for you girls, ladies. Let's say that the amount that is required is, I actually don't even know. I need to really do some research, but let's say it's $5,000 per year. Okay. And I want to be able to fund his entire education, which for primary school is about, depending on your country, it might be like 7 years, right? So I need $35,000. This is scaring me as I look at these numbers, right? So I need $35,000. And the time that I want this by is, I don't need it all up front, but I need to be able to know that I'm on track of making that money by the time he started school, which is in about 3 years' time. So let's say it's the 1st of September, 2028. Okay. So my plan of action might be that I actually need to first research school fees, right? And just actually figure out, is this $5,000 a year the right amount of money, or is it more, or is it less, so that I can be very clear about the amount that is required. My second plan of, oops, sorry. My second plan of action is that I need to maybe create some sort of like a savings/investment fund for this, right? Because I probably can't save $35,000, but I might be able to generate $35,000 by potentially putting some money into a savings account or an investment account that's going to make me more money through like market conditions and interest rates and things like that, right? So making sure that my money is working for me and that I'm not just looking for $35,000. Maybe all I need is $20,000, and then that has to then create interest and grow in some sort of way. Okay. So, my first step is probably just going to be to uh, make a list of desired schools. And that's going to be my first step to helping me to do the research into the school fees. Okay, so I want you to do the same thing. We have about 10 minutes left in the session. So why don't you spend for now just 5 minutes on this, and you can certainly come back to it after the session is finished, and we'll share these templates with you so that you can fill them in yourself. But just spend 5 minutes working on at least like your short-term goal for sure, and then maybe moving into your medium-term goal. Okay. There's an issue on the slide. You can't see it? Can you guys not hear me? Andrew, you can't hear me?
We can't hear you, Daniel.
Oh, I'm not talking though. That's why you can't hear me. You ladies are spending some time. I wasn't talking, Fandra. That's why you couldn't hear me. So I just want you to take some time filling in this template for yourself. Okay, ladies, spend like 1 more minute just filling in this table. And like I said, please come back to it later on today and do it for the medium term and the long term goals. If you haven't had a chance to do that yet, you might need to spend some more time thinking about it. But take 1 more minute, and then I would love for you to share. I'll prompt you in a minute. No, this table isn't in your workbooks, but you'll receive the slides from, they're going to be uploaded in the folder so that you can fill it in directly into this presentation. Cool. All right, ladies, so let me hear from you. So what is your financial goal for this year? What do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Jump in the chat and let me know. So Pandra says enough to finish her house. Maureen says $50,000. Okay. And try to be like really specific. So Maureen, for $50,000, is that $50,000 coming from clients? Is it $50,000 coming from other sources? Mushtak says to buy land at $10,000. Nai also says enough to buy land. So put down, you may not want to share with me, that's okay, but just make sure that for you, that number is super specific. Nai, so like how much is it that you need to buy land? And Rebecca, when I look at yours, sales and grant revenue increase. So again, like put a very concrete number down of what you want that to look like. Janet says complete paying for land worth 300,000 shillings. Okay, great. So now what is your first step to make that happen? So what is your first step to get you closer to that goal that you've set for yourself? I'd love to hear what that first step is also. Let me know in the chat. Okay, Maureen says for 50,000 sales profit. Great. What is that first step? The first step is to create value on our products and always make innovation. Okay. I'd encourage you to break that down even further. So if you want to create value on your products, what needs to happen in order for that to happen? Naya says to raise capital for my venture, attract new clients, and scale up my business. So again, go a step deeper. So if you need to raise capital for your venture, what is the first step to raising that capital? Is it that you need to finish your business model? Is it that you need to find places to pitch to and create, or maybe even create a pitch deck? Is it that you um, yeah, like what is the exact step that's going to help you to raise capital? Same with attracting new clients. Is it that you need to put marketing material out there? Is it that you have to do follow-ups? So really, really be specific, ladies, about these steps. Rebecca says marketing and visibility. So again, what is the exact step for marketing? Is it that you need to create a social media page? Is it that you need to create content? Do you need to develop your content pillars? Janet says, bring 2 more clients to enable me to save 50,000 for the next 6 months. Okay, great. So again, a step below that. What step do you need to take to bring in those 2 clients? Do you need to, maybe it's just following up with people that are already in your pipeline? Anita says to raise sufficient funds to purchase event equipment for rental at about $5,000. Her first step is raising funding and identifying suppliers for materials. Okay. So again, what's the real step about raising funding? How do you go and raise that funding? Networking. Great. Yeah. So I want you ladies to really try to break it down to that real first step. Don't keep it too high level and big and saying, oh, I need to increase marketing. But what exactly do you need to do to increase your marketing? What exactly do you need to do to bring in those customers? Is it, like I said, do you just need to follow up with people? Do you need, as Nye shares, do you need to do networking? If you need to do networking, maybe the first step is now identifying events that you need to go and network at, or identifying opportunities to go and network at. Be specific, okay? Um, Maureen says, increase customer engagement by improving my values, initiating flexible payment terms, good customer support services, making our prices flexible and open to other opportunities like grants, networking, partnerships, referrals, commissions. Okay, good. I encourage you ladies to really start making progress on these goals, to write them down, to keep them in the front of your mind, to be working on them every single week and identifying what do you need to be doing in your business and even in your personal lives to make sure that you're making progress towards these goals that you say that you want. So we will be sharing this template with you. I'll also extract just that page itself and send it to you in the WhatsApp group so that you don't have to dig through the whole presentation. I will share some other financial templates with you that will help you with the budgeting side of things and also with calculating your net worth so that you can really start to stay on top of these finances and become more confident with your money matters. As I said earlier, if you haven't yet taken that quiz, I highly recommend that you do so just so that you can even have that additional support from the free program that comes off the back of it, that Denise will then send to you by email, and you can watch those videos and learn some bits and pieces there about your money mindset and how you can start to use it to your advantage rather than allowing it to sabotage you. Okay. Whew. All right, we are a little bit over time. As all coaching sessions, I have done a lot of talking today, but I want to turn over to you. What questions do you have? What reflections do you have? We can spend the next couple of minutes answering any of those that might be with you. You're welcome, Maureen. You're welcome, ladies. You're welcome. Yeah, I really love teaching on this topic because in my 12 years of supporting women in business and also being a woman in business myself, I get it. I know that money can be hard. And I know that even if we think positive things about money, it can still impact us in subtle ways that we're not really aware of. So thank you for being open and for sharing vulnerably as you always have. And I really encourage this to be your day zero where you decide, okay, I'm going to start doing things different, even if it feels a bit scary. Yeah, Natasha says like overwhelming, but super important. Like, even if it feels a bit overwhelming, even if it feels a bit scary, even if it feels so out of your comfort zone, I want to reassure you that you are capable. You are fully capable of learning the skills that you need to learn to get better with your finances. You may have been telling yourself for years that you're no good with money. You may be a creative and not care about money. You may feel like money is not for you, and it can be, right? We all deserve to be wealthy. We all deserve to have what we need to thrive, not just survive. And we all deserve to make money from our businesses and not feel guilty about it. Um, Maureen, I'll answer your question in just a second, but I just want to really leave you with those parting words of like, you can decide to do things differently and continue to lean on us for support to do so. Maureen asks, how do I overcome the fear of taking a loan for my business? I think that fear is always going to be there. It's like you feel the fear and you do it anyway. And really understand like first understand where that fear is coming from. Acknowledge it. Say, I see you, fear. I see that you're here, and I know that you're trying to protect me. But ask what it's trying to protect you from. Are you afraid because you don't think that you'll be able to pay it back? Are you afraid because you just don't like having debt and that makes you feel anxious? Are you afraid for something else? Like try to really understand where that fear is coming from. The other thing to consider is, what exactly are you going to use that loan for? Okay, you share that you don't like debt. Sometimes we have to take debt in order to grow our businesses, whether that be on a credit card or from a bank. Even if it's investing in, for example, a program that's going to teach you skills that you don't have. So the real question is understanding, like, if I take out this loan, whether it be on a card or through a bank, what do I need to do in order to pay it back, right? So figure out what that number is, and then what do you need to do in your business in order to pay that back? What does that look like in terms of the number of customers that you need to bring in the door? How much money do you need to be earning? Include the interest as well. What is the time frame that you think that you'll be able to pay that back? And see if that really makes sense, right? See if that loan is going to get you where you need to be. Let me give you an example. Back in 2020, and I know we're over time, so if you ladies need to drop off, please go ahead and do so. But just one last thought here. Back in 2020, during the peak of COVID, when my business was, again, not really making much money because I had to change up my business model in so many ways, I invested in two different coaching programs that I couldn't afford. Frankly, I couldn't afford them. I put both of them onto credit cards, and I believed in myself. I believed that these two programs were going to teach me skills that I needed to learn that I didn't currently have, that were ultimately going to change the course of my business. So I ended up spending about $5,000 combined on these two courses. And like I said, I didn't have it at the time. I was, again, at that stage, not paying myself a salary because COVID took over and I didn't have the money coming in. And yeah, I was also afraid of that debt. One of those courses was was a coaching program with a sales coach. So she was a woman who had a sales formula that she teaches everybody that I believed was a skill that I was really missing in my business. Like, I knew I was missing it because I was having all these conversations, all these consultations. People were loving what I was doing and people weren't saying yes. I knew that I was lacking something in that skill. And so I believed that if I invested in this program, and that if her promise was as good as she said it was, which I believed it was because she had lots of testimonials, she'd been doing it for years. I believed in the message that she was putting out there. I believed that I would get that money back. And I did. I got it back, not straight away. I think I got it back like a month after I made the investment, just by implementing exactly what it is that she taught me to do, right? And following her process and closing those sales, I got that money back. I later went on to invest in a one-to-one program with her, which was $10,000 the following year. And again, that fear was there. It's like, will I be able to make it? But I had to bet on myself. I had to bet, okay, Danielle, you were going to learn this thing. You were going to take this knowledge. You were going to work with this expert, and you were going to make that money back. And sure enough, I made that money back and then more, right? And it's a skill that I'm now still using to this day, and which is still allowing me to close sales, and which I also can now teach to my clients to help them in closing sales also. So you have to decide, is this investment that I'm making, whether it's a loan or debt or a course that you're doing, is it going to give me the ROI that I need, the return on investment that I need in order to be able to pay this money back? So when you're taking a loan, are you going to use that money for something that's going to allow you to make that money back? So maybe you're bringing in taking on a loan in order to bring on people that are going to help to grow your business. Or maybe you're bringing on a loan to help you invest in equipment that's going to help you to scale your business. If you believe that that's the case, then it's worth taking. If you don't see that clear pathway to, I take this loan and then I get the money back by doing X, Y, Z, then I would encourage you not to necessarily take it at this point in time, or maybe to take it from a source that isn't going to be so punitive. So maybe the interest rate is lower. Maybe it's a family member that is just going to lend you money and you don't have to pay back interest. So those are some questions that I would consider. But you're always going to feel that fear. Fear is normal. It's not wrong. It's not telling you to say no. It's just saying, okay, this is uncomfortable. It's something that's outside of my comfort zone. And it's something that I have to decide if it's the right thing that I want to be doing. Okay. All right, ladies. So I think that's it for questions. If you have more questions, again, always feel free to just jump into the WhatsApp chat later. What's coming next? Next week, you just have me as your facilitator again. I am not going to be talking as much as I have been these last 2 weeks. We're going to have your next training session, which is going to be talking about the how. It's going to be about financial management tools. We talked a lot about money today, but Agnès is going to be teaching you more about finances, specifically within the business and how to understand your numbers. And so that's going to be next Tuesday at the same time on the same link as we continue this conversation about money now for the next few weeks, okay? There is no homework to prepare for next week. I just encourage you to fill in this template. The templates that I also share with you later for money, work on those, but we're not going to look at them together. There's no specific homework for next week. But one thing that we would like you to do is that Christina has shared a midterm evaluation with you ladies by email. I think she also put it in the WhatsApp group. But and Dawit, can you just pop the link into the chat for me real quick? To take a few minutes to share your feedback about the program so far, because we are now more than halfway through, which is crazy. I can't believe we're already more than halfway through. But let us know your feedback. It's really valuable to us to make sure that the end of the program is as impactful as the beginning of the program, and to share anything that you might be struggling with or that you still need. Okay. All right, and then finally, the useful links, they're always the same. The slides and recordings can be found in the Google folder, you all already in the WhatsApp group, I believe. And then we will see you again next Tuesday at the same time and the same link to do your next training session. Okay. I'm glad that today was helpful. Thank you again for your